How are you feeling today?
Good. How you doing?
Pretty good, man.
So we got a lot to talk about today on the environmental catastrophe called Fukushima, the environmental denial. We'll talk a lot about Chernobyl today. We're going to talk a lot about nuclear, your favorite subject, kids. We're going to talk a lot about your favorite subject today, kids. Nuclear waste. So hurry and run and hide. So first off, this right here, if this doesn't concern you, what's this? That's the stillhead salmon count in Oregon right now. Now, why is that so important? As the marine biologist, I know I can get a handle on what's going to happen in the future on the Pacific Ocean by the stillhead salmon counts. Now, stillhead, of course, spawn in Idaho, right? They live in the Pacific Ocean. Their life cycle is very short. 1-2 years. Chinook salmon's up to 8 years, so look at this nightmare. It's the peak of the run right now. This is on the Columbia, Willamette. It's a nightmare. There ain't nothing coming home, and we're already at such catastrophe. Where's the Endangered Species Act, for God's sakes? The Trump administration, the Obama administration, they did nothing. But the Trump administration, it's even worse, and he does nothing. Promote more nuclear. So, first off, we're going to get to Chernobyl, and I'm going to talk a lot about the dynamic of Chernobyl. The documentary was a powerhouse. It's changing the world. I knew it would. So, we're going to talk a lot about compare and contrast in a real way, Fukushima and Chernobyl. We're going to talk about nuclear waste. Now, this morning on CBS, national news, deniers, I didn't see it on ABC, I didn't see it on NBC, I didn't see it on Foxconn News, I didn't see it on CNN, I sure didn't see it on Alex Jones. I'm so pissed at Alex Jones, you don't even want to know. He took on Fukushima, and the only reason, this is important for you people out there, the only reason Alex Jones took on Fukushima was to sell survivalist products. That's all he was up to. And he was hooked in with Patriot, which is here in Salt Lake, which I know that guy, and I ain't got a problem. Neither the Mormon preaches, 2 years survivalist, end times, bro. But as soon as his Lord and Savior, he was a hack, a political hack, not a peep about Fukushima. How can you use something like this when I'm in critical condition, fighting for my life? Why, abuse and use me? The people that did fight this for your own personal gain, then just run and hide. You made enough money, I guess. So, first off, let's talk about Yucca Mountain. What's that? So this Yucca Mountain thesis has been going my entire life, and I'm 59 years old. A lot of it tied to this university. Lattice construction, floor construction. So, when the nuclear industry was building itself up, the nuclear energy industry, post the bomb, people were going crazy. Especially people of faith. The communions, the Catholics, the Muslims, everybody, they were going psycho. Anybody with any kind of native beliefs. Religious Utah, oh, no way. Utah went psycho against the nuclear industry. Well, we were downwinders, they were testing open-air bombs here. So, this negotiation was dancing for a while, everything's going to become nuclear, we're going to be flying around in nuclear jets and cars, nuclear bombs, nuclear toasters, nuclear freaking, you name it. So, everybody who had half a brain was listening to Einstein. Einstein says, you will never take this technology further. This is a catastrophe. This is the stupidest thing in the world. And then they started talking about, of course, revitrification. If you don't know what revitrification is, this is the fairy tale lie that the industry shoved down our throat, saying they could take nuclear waste and revit it and turn it into more nuclear fuel. Total lie. If you don't know what Savannah River is in South Carolina, Savannah River, Chicago Bridge and Iron, floor construction here, they looted billions. So it was a fairy tale by Arriva in France. Arriva is the nuclear industry that is backed by the French government. Bankrupt multiple times, just like Chicago Bridge and Iron, just like Westinghouse, the whole industry, you just bail them out. You don't even know you're bailing them out. And you think in the past, no, right here, right now. So we got I'm going to get back to this, but we got really bad news here in Utah. Probably the worst news in the history of the state this week. And it blows my mind that there's no resistance here in Utah. You got me. And I think history's going to go back in time. You know, I spent a lot of time in Austria. As you know, when everybody was doing this to Hitler because they were afraid of him, in Germany and Austria, of course, there was one guy. There's a famous photo. His name's Augusta. What do you think of his last? Landmeiser. Augusta Landmeiser. Look him up. He's the guy that stood in the crowd like this. They're like, you crazy. Everybody in Austria will say now, oh, that's my uncle. Oh, that's my grandpa. That's who I consider myself with the Utah resistance. Nobody, nothing. Sierra Club, what a joke. Hill of Utah, I'm one of the original founders of Hill, Utah. We were based on no nuclear energy, no nuclear waste. Now this guy that's hijacked, I mean, it's pathetic. So, what happened? We've been fighting nuclear waste coming into the state for decades and decades and decades. They've been trying to dump it out there in the desert, not that far, 70 miles away as the crow flies from Salt Lake City. So, Energy Solutions it's called. They just bury it in the ground. They've been illegally dumping stuff. Mike Lee got caught trying to bring in the Italian waste. Then he tells me right here on this campus, right here, oh, Kevin, my dad was a downwinder, we just found out. This is the sick bastards that they are. Now you think about this. Mike Lee's dad died of leukemia at, I think, 48 years old. Governor Herbert's dad died young of it. Yet these guys, so the bad news, and it happened Wednesday night. So the Trump administration, Rick Perry, who's head of the Department of Energy, and a lot of people don't know this, but Rick Perry is heavily involved in the nuclear waste industry. This is so corrupt. Rick Perry, the Texan, one of the dumbest politicians who ever walked, by the way. We're going to make nuclear sexy again. I don't know if he's that dumb or if he's just that sly. So, the head of the NRC has ties to this campus. She's a crook too. New scale. But, so what had happened here? We have state laws in the state of Utah on nuclear waste. Strong state laws, just like we do in Idaho. So our legislator went to work this year to backdoor the laws in our state law to allow what we call the depleted 700,000 tons of depleted uranium. That's one catastrophe. This is a different catastrophe. Governor Herbert said he'd block it. He said he'd block it, he'd block it. We hate the feds, we hate the feds. He told me right on this campus, Governor Herbert. You can look it up. No, Kevin, I'll never let it in, blah, blah, blah. You know, talked about his father, the leukemia. You know, this is how they talk. Oh, Kevin, how's your mom doing? She's dead. She died this. How's your cancer fight? You know, in the meantime, they're stabbing you in the back. So, he doesn't veto it when he told me to my face he would. That's one thing. But what happened this week is a billion times worse than that. So the Trump administration, the Department of Energy, the gods that they think they are, they don't think they have to go through Congress. This executive order thing is a nightmare. They're unconstitutional. Started by Bush. Obama pulled it too. Obama and Trump are identical nuclear twins. So what did they do Wednesday night? They declassified all the nuclear waste. So all they did was take high-level nuclear waste, the deadly killer, and just with a stroke of a pen, just go, shh. Now it's low-level waste. That's it. You're not, you know, Manuel no more. You're Willie. You know, whatever. You're not Mexican anymore. You're Russian.
They rename it.
That's all they did.
Rename it, yes.
You know, you're not a human anymore. You're a giraffe. That's all they did. So guess where it's coming? And you got me resisting. So Rick Perry, head of the D.O.E., he owns part of Waste Management from Texas. The two biggest, there's only two really, there were, Holtec's getting involved now. Waste Management and of course Energy Solutions. The Energy Solutions arena, come kill yourself. They don't employ shit. They don't employ anybody. It's a sham. So they merged during the Obama administration. Now Obama won't go after Bayer, he won't go after Monsanto, he won't go after anybody in as far as antitrust theater. What's antitrust? Antitrust is lawsuits filed against companies for getting conglomeration, concentrate of one company running too much. You know, it all started again with Rockefeller baby, Rosemary's baby, Russell's baby, you know, Sinclair Oil. You know, not letting them get too big. But they don't, I mean, come on, let's get real. They haven't taken on anybody for antitrust in decades. So they take this on. Now, I had Energy Solutions kicked out of here. They were gone to Texas. They're out of here. They say in Texas is consented. By the way, they say you've consented in Idaho. I say, yeah, like a passed out coed behind a freaking dumpster, you consented. And so they don't know. But that's the whole big thing. They mask these bills with these words in them, and the American populace is working too long, especially the youth. There's no resistance in the youth because they're working 4 jobs to pay their rent. How can they resist? They're too busy serving you baby boomers food. You know, I wonder how many of them spit in it. I would. So, with a stroke of a pen, they declassified all the waste. All of it. All of it. We're talking 800,000 tons in reactors alone. We're talking Hanford waste. By the way, at the University of Washington, there's an accident going on at the university right now. Look this one. This is a major story. So, a research lab with nuclear waste that are researching brain tissue, human tissue, all kinds of samples, and saying they had an accident on the dock and it got in. So they're cleansing the building, but it happened outside. You can look this. This is a major story. Nobody's talking about. So there's a major nuclear accident going on at the University of Washington right here, right now. Google it. So this morning, after all my work I've done at Son Onofre for all these years, CBS lead story this morning was the nuclear waste at Yakima. Now let's get into this, and we'll get back to Utah, Idaho, stroke of a pen. Just it's all good. This stuff doesn't give you cancer. This doesn't kill you. You know, the whole country's a bunch of Madame Curies. And if you don't know Madame Curies, you know nothing. And if you think that nuclear waste in any form, safe or thing is, you're a fool, absolute fool. So, Yucca Mountain was the deal struck by the nuclear industry through Congress. Congress agreed to build a hole and put all the nuclear waste from these nuclear reactors in. That was in the 70s, early 70s, passed. Okay. $19 billion we spent on Yucca Mountain. Big portion of it's built. Been built for a while. But let's remember, that's back when Nevada was the boondocks. Las Vegas was the boonies. It ain't the boonies no more. Fastest growing city in America for a long time. In the last 20, 30 years, population's what? Went up 30, 40, 50 times there? They wield a lot of political clout there now. There's a guy down there. His name's Edelson. The casino magnate, it's Edelson. And, I mean, you don't think that guy wields power? So, of course, people say, well, the Obama administration put a dagger to Yucca Mountain. That was Harry Reid. Now, let's talk about Harry Reid. This is insane, this guy. Harry Reid's son went to school here on this campus. Harry Reid is a Mormon, born and raised in Satellite. Where's Satellite, Nevada? It's just a trailer of old brothels and whatever at Yucca Mountain, Nevada. That's where it's at. That's where he grew up. Mormon missionaries found him when he was 18, converted him. He came to Utah, went to school at Utah State, worked at Thiokol right out here forever. He's a Mormon. Harry Reid wasn't about, I mean, he had to get elected in Nevada. You're going to be pro Yucca Mountain? Who was head of the Senate, third most powerful person in the United States? Maybe the most powerful, because Obama was such a puppet douche who did nothing. Harry Reid wielded a lot of power. Well, you think that he's going to let it into his state? His state's Nevada. They don't want it. No, I mean, be a politician in Nevada and say, oh yeah, I'm pro Yucca Mountain. See how long you stay elected. About a week. They don't hang you. So he wielded, he was head of the Senate, he wielded power, he daggered it. They killed Yucca Mountain, which had already been killed, but it had already been built, 19 billion looted, like at Savannah River, the Moxfield fairy tale in South Carolina to refit, halfway done. The Obama administration goes into Savannah River. They do an investigation, Chicago Bridge and Iron, Arriva, Floor Construction, all these players. This is the end of the Obama administration. They go in, they investigate. You've billed the United States taxpayer $29 billion for 72% completion after the investigation, and we've concluded that it's only 28% complete. Blatant fraud, misleading statement. You know how they panty paint it? They just ripped off $15 billion for this, I call it a Tower to Babylon. There was never no refit. Einstein told us back then there never will be no refit. It's a fairy tale, it's a loot job. There is no answer for this nuclear waste. It's a big deal, so it's piling up all over the United States. It's in swimming pools. So all these reactors around the United States, 104, take one down, pass it around. There's 104 nuclear reactors in this United. There was, you know, post-Fukushima, Kevin Blanch's work. We're down into the 70s and counting, but you keep bailing them out. They bailed them out in New York City. You know, I fought the New York City bailout tooth and nail. Illinois was the first one. Gell and I fought him. We thought we had him beat. We thought we had the votes to stop it. We did. We barely lost. We lost by that much on the bailout. By the way, Zion, the nuclear waste there, that's the name of the reactor. It was torn down a long time ago in Illinois. The so-called level lab, when they tore it down, is here in Utah. The Energy Solutions dump site, just like the San Onofre generator, which had an accident, which is way hundreds of thousands of times above the Utah state limit, buried in the ground right here in Utah, while everybody's asleep. There's no police. There's one guy who's supposed to be guarding this. He's head of I'll think of his, Sheehan's his name. He's a derelict. You know, where's the academia professors? Where's the historians? Where's the fighters? You know, remember when professors used to, you know, take on issues like this, get students motivated? What do professors do now around this campus? I'll tell you where they're all at. It's summer. They're on vacation in Europe, in the south of France, freaking with their feet up. These professors are lazy derelicts. You know, with their big fat money, because this housing crisis, this low percent interest rate has created everybody going to school. They're flush with money. They've got so much money. There's no accountability with a professor anymore. They're not professors anymore. They're high school teachers. You know, they go on vacation. They're making so much money. It's ridiculous. They're so comfortable. It's so ridiculous. So, the waste. They're called spent fuel pools. Now, Western Zirconium right here is a major employer right out behind my house, Little Mountain, Utah. They make the zirconium rods for these nuclear monsters. They have a revit experimental plant out there on the backside of the hill. Try getting in there. Go out there and try getting in. You know, they experiment with nuclear waste. I have for decades there. So, this is the inland port in Utah. That's the secret in the closet about the inland port is nuclear waste. It's where all the money is right now. Government pork. So these spent fuel pools in these reactors, 104 reactors, they're swimming pools. So they take these rods, they're about this tall, they're in bundles like this. When they get done, after they peak, and it's not natural uranium from the earth, it's not uranium-238, it's uranium-235, which is a centrifusion process, which is unnatural, which creates plutonium. It creates all these monsters, these killer monsters. These people, oh God, uranium's natural out of the earth. This isn't natural uranium. They take this uranium, they take it to freaking places like Westinghouse in Illinois, and they centrifuge it, they gas it, they spin it, which releases what we call free radicals and a chemical plutonium. Hulk. It's deadly, it's a killer, it's the most evil thing in human history. So when they get done, these rods, they lose their full power. They're still alive. They're alive forever. They have to stay cool. So they have a crank go into swimming pools. Well, these reactors weren't built for spent fuel pools. These reactors were built to temporarily hold in a spent fuel pool, not permanent storage. So for 50 years, they've been stacking spent fuel pool on top of stacked fuel pool on stack of spent fuel pool, and it's piling up and piling up. So by law, now these reactors are not privately owned. Or excuse me, and not public utilities, which people perceive that somehow. You know, Cal-Ed, you know, these people. No. These are private people own these. Now, Bill Gates is really heavily into them. He owns lots of them. He's a sick creep. You know, getting back to Utah, he's the one that stole, you know, the operating system was invented here. Right here. You know, he stole it from WordPerfect. I mean, it's a fact. He's a thief. So he owns nuclear reactors. Price-Anderson, you can Google it, is the Congressional Act in 1950s, which made no liability. So the government pork is what they're after. I mean, who's the welfare queens? So this waste is piling up, piling it up, piling it up. So these people went to court and sued the United States taxpayer because you'd never put it into Yucca Mountain. They won. So we as taxpayers pay a fine every month to these reactors, to these owners. Every month. We have for decades now. We pay this huge fine because we won't deal with the waste. So we have another test facility in New Mexico. It's called W.I.P.P. Western Initiative Pilot Program. Shh, don't tell anybody. Carlsbad, New Mexico. Right there, the Manhattan Project on Balco. So get this. This ties right back to Weber State University. So in February of 2014, I'm in the Water School of Business over there where I used to teach. I get word from a reporter down there. Calls me. Kevin, there's been an accident in W.I.P.P. Really? What kind? He says, I don't know, but there's been an accident there. So I reported it. So they immediately come out and said it was a salt truck that blew up. Blatantly lying, like they always blatantly lie. It was, so finally they got container. So it was a radnet dish at El Paso, UTEP, picked up plutonium in the dish. And some freelancers, my army, started releasing this, putting it in the internet. Our group did it as grassrooters, which we always do. Government agencies don't do nothing. So they finally come out and says, oh, we'll put a camera down there. And we forced them through, I mean, there was some people, some suits, whatever. They're forced to release the footage. So they released the footage. It was a container full of plutonium, blew up. Nuclear waste. Guess what the label on the container was? Peterson Fabrications, Far West, Utah. So it blew up. They closed the whole thing down. They've been stuffing waste in there for decades secretly. So they go to work on it. $2 billion. Cheap, clean. Too cheap to murder. Green, clean, nuclear energy, the greatest lies in human history. $2 billion. $2 billion. So everybody's got their fingers in it, including the Mormon Church. Everybody's got their fingers in this freaking, welfare pie. It's all government pork. So this spent fuel's piled up in all these reactors. These reactors are old, they're tired, they're worn out. And these states now, they've used up the international subsidy in Vienna. They've used up the Price-Anderson federal subsidy. You can look it up. All energies, there's 13 that the government subsidizes. You take the other 12, times it by 20, you still don't get to nuclear energy. It's a government pork welfare queens. And the only one who even talks about this is Bernie, used to. He was an anti-nuclear energy guy, back in the day. The rest of them are afraid of the nuclear industry. I mean, Kamala Harris, perfect example. She shut down San Onofre. She worked with me personally, on the shutdown of San Onofre. Went after him, and then she drops the ball when she runs for Senate because stand up to that beast. So this is important for you at San Onofre, California, and everything, because you've watched this on CBS this morning. Just remember one thing at San Onofre. That's my work. Without me, they never shut down. Without my cancer, they never shut down. I'm the guy that got them shut down. Mike Levin's run, I know Mike personally. He's District 49. Guess who blocked Yucca Mountain? Because Congress went back in again and says, reapproved it. Let's go. Let's fire it up. Well, there's a committee, the funding committee. Guess who's chair of the committee and did not fund it again for the second straight year? Your very own in California, Dianne Feinstein. So you think about this. I've talked to Dianne Feinstein from UDI. They won't let me video in her office in the Edward Schwartz building, USS Reagan case. Let me start this over and then we'll get into this.